At the end of April 2026, the internet had itself a genuinely spicy meal. JPMorgan Chase, the biggest bank in America, landed in the middle of a scandal that at first glance looked like a story about shaksual slavery happening right inside one of the most prestigious financial institutions on the planet. A high-ranking female executive allegedly turned her colleague into personal property, slipped drugs and aphrodisiacs into his drinks, and threatened to torch his career if he dared say no. Headlines spread across the world within hours. And yes, before you say it, this is basically the fantasy scenario keeping certain corners of Pornhub very, very busy. But the longer journalists dug, the more cringe the whole thing became, because the story turned out to be not quite what it looked like at the start. And the best part, for those of us who cover AI, is that an AI chatbot ended up involved in the whole mess, in possibly the most unexpected way imaginable. But let's go through this properly, from the beginning. This is Brain in Jar, or Brain Ninja if you wish. Let's begin. Sharayu Rana joined JPMorgan Chase in March 2024. 35 years old, Rutgers Business School graduate, Senior VP in the Leveraged Finance Division. That's a serious position at a serious bank. They don't just pull people off the street. Around the same time, a new senior figure appears in his team, a female senior figure. This is probably the only situation in my entire career with a feminist insistence on gendered job titles would actually be completely appropriate. Lorna Hadini, 37, Executive Director of the same division. By the bank's internal assessments, a strong performer, a person with an impeccable reputation. According to Rana, this is the moment everything he would later describe in the lawsuit begins. May 2024. The first incident, if you believe the lawsuit, reads like a teenage fantasy someone wrote during puberty. But according to Rana, this is where it all started. Hadini dropped a pen near his desk, bent down to pick it up, ran her hand along his leg, and squeezed his calf. After that, he says, she made a shaksual comment, something along the lines that basketball players really do it for her. Rana played basketball in college. He didn't respond. He didn't reciprocate. And according to his version, that was the beginning of serious pressure. From there, the tone allegedly started shifting. Hadini reportedly began making direct propositions. When he declined, conversations took a different turn. One exchange, described in the complaint, became the most quoted passage in the press. She allegedly said to him, word for word, "If you don't sleep with me soon, I will destroy you. Never forget, you are my property, my toy boy." Sounds like a scene from a thriller, but that's exactly what's written in the court document. Summer 2024. The most serious episode in the lawsuit. Rana claims Hadini showed up uninvited and unannounced at the apartment where he was staying. He says he refused her, but she tied the situation directly to his career. Do you want your year-end bonus or not? According to him, that evening is what he describes as shaksual assault. Beyond that episode, the lawsuit also alleges that Hadini repeatedly slipped substances into his drinks, including Rohypnol, better known as the date rape drug, and Viagra. Combining those two medications is not, for the record, an investment recommendation. According to Rana, the purpose was simple: to remove his ability to resist. The lawsuit names two witnesses who can allegedly corroborate parts of his account. Their identities remain unknown for now. Late 2024, Rana starts looking for another job. He wants out of JPMorgan. According to him, Hadini and several other senior managers, upon learning this, began deliberately giving him damaging references to potential employers, essentially blocking his exit. He got out anyway. Rana landed a principal position at the investment firm Regal Sagemount. He left the toxic environment, found a new place, and apparently decided it was time to fight for his honor. May 2025. Rana files an official written complaint inside JPMorgan. The document describes racial and gender discrimination, systematic harassment, and severe shaksual violence. Simultaneously, according to New York Post sources, he attempts to negotiate a multi-million-dollar severance package in exchange for silence. The bank says no. Within a week of filing the complaint, Rana claims the retaliation begins. He's suspended, locked out of corporate systems. On top of that, he says he starts receiving anonymous, threatening phone calls. One of them, by his account, contained direct racial slurs targeting him as a person of South Asian descent. Another call allegedly threatened to report him and his family to immigration authorities. And that's not a small thing. It's 2025, Trump is at the wheel, and he is not the type to ask questions first. April 28, 2026. The lawsuit is filed in New York State Supreme Court. The plaintiff appears publicly as John Doe, the standard designation for someone unidentified or wishing to remain anonymous. The document immediately hits the press and goes viral. Within 24 hours, hundreds of outlets around the world are covering it. A story about a high-ranking woman turning a colleague into a shaksual slave using drugs. That's not just a scandal. That's a complete reversal of the template. Roles are usually distributed differently in these stories. Did I already make the joke about one of the most popular fantasies on a certain website? Because I feel like I did. Then the press gets involved properly. New York Post identifies John Doe. It's Chirayu Rana, who, as a reminder, had already been gone from the bank for over a year by the time he filed the suit and was working somewhere else entirely. And then something else comes out. Journalists find a conversation Rana had with a legal AI chatbot on one of those online advice platforms, apparently before the lawsuit was filed. In this conversation, he describes his situation, talks about the harassment, the pressure, the fear. It all reads like prep work for a lawsuit, an early consultation about how to frame everything in the most favorable light possible. But one detail matters enormously. In that conversation, the person he describes as his abuser is a man, not a woman, a man. On top of that, the same conversation references incidents that allegedly took place long before Rana even joined JPMorgan in 2024. Let's get into the specifics of that conversation. The actual quotes from the exchange are publicly available. New York Post published screenshots. The conversation apparently took place roughly 10 months before the lawsuit was filed. Rana writes, "I was raped, sexually assaulted, harassed, and forced to do drugs by my former boss at Morgan Stanley." Already in the very first message, a different company appears. Also a Morgan, for what it's worth, but Stanley. And there's a delightful spelling error in the word shaksually. He wrote something like sexually. Ladies and gentlemen, a top business school graduate. Though maybe it's self-censorship, like me with my shaksual. Next message, when the bot asked for more details. "It's been a tough time for me though. I was shaksually assaulted and harassed by my former boss, and he even forced me to do drugs. It's been really hard to deal with." There it is. He, not she. When the bot asked for a name, no idea why, maybe for some legal template, the user wrote, "Chirayu Rana, I need help." When the bot asked whether he had actual evidence, the user responded that he had an enormous amount of it, in caps, and confirmed he hadn't yet spoken to a real lawyer. In later parts of the conversation, Rana describes being afraid to go to the police, citing threats from this individual and a hostile work environment after trying to transfer to a different team. He also claims he recorded phone calls, and that after leaving the job under what he calls awful circumstances, he developed serious psychological problems. Those recorded phone calls, by the way, have not appeared anywhere in the proceedings so far. Presumably, he'll bring those to 11 Labs next. Also not an investment recommendation. And the real highlight, the user asks the bot, "Do you think I actually have a valid claim?" And, "Do you know anyone who might take my case?" One important note here. Nothing in the conversation suggests the chatbot itself generated the allegations. The system operates in standard legal advice format, asks follow-up questions, suggests types of lawyers, and relies entirely on information provided by the user. This is not a story about an AI chatbot training another unhinged person to do something strange. This is a story about leaving fewer traces in chatbots. When they dump all the databases, what are you going to do? Haidini's lawyers release an official statement. I'll quote, "Lorna categorically denies all allegations. She never engaged in any inappropriate contact with this individual. She was never present at the location where he claims the assault occurred. That's a direct alibi. Not just a denial of the act itself, a statement that she was physically not there where, according to the lawsuit, the key episode happened. JPMorgan conducts its own internal investigation, covering email records, phone records, and employee interviews. The bank's conclusion is unambiguous. No evidence of any violations found. The bank also notes separately that Hydini fully cooperated with the investigation, while Rana himself declined to participate and provided no facts to support his claims. Hydini's colleagues, in private conversations with journalists, call the allegations a complete fabrication and say Rana has tarnished her name. Almost immediately after the story went viral, the original version of the court filing was pulled by Rana's legal team for corrections, which immediately raised one obvious question. Why retract a document that's already in court and already all over the press? Suspicious, isn't it? But we're not here to judge anyone. We're here to gossip. So where are we now? The lawsuit has not been officially dropped. It's in amendment, but it's still active. No verdict, no criminal charges. This is a civil case that's only just getting started. But the picture that emerges from open sources looks like this. A man joined JPMorgan. Something did or didn't happen. In May 2025, he tried to negotiate a multi-million-dollar payout in exchange for silence, was refused, filed an internal complaint, the bank reviewed and didn't substantiate, and then, in April 2026, filed a public lawsuit with allegations so detailed and sensational they went viral within hours. Even titans of AI news, like myself, made a whole separate video about it. If that's not a measure of the story's reach, I don't know what is. The chatbot conversation, if it's genuine, and who knows, puts not just the details, but the entire foundation of the story in question. Why this story matters, regardless of how it ends. First, this is a rare public case where the alleged victim of a shaksual accusation is a man, and the accused is a high-ranking woman. That alone flipped the usual script. Rumor has it, and the internet jokes are not subtle, that a lot of men are currently trying very hard to get a job at JPMorgan, specifically under Lorna Hydini, and HR cannot keep up with the applications. Second, look how easy it is to destroy someone's reputation. And here's an actual injustice worth noting. Hydini has not been suspended from her position. If this were a man in the accused seat, he'd have been walked out the door immediately. Quiet resignation, minimize the optics, and all of that before any trial, before anyone knows whether any of it is true. Patriarchy works in mysterious ways. Third, if the chatbot conversation is genuine, this is a precedent of an entirely new kind. A person apparently used AI to prepare a legal strategy, and in doing so, gave contradictory testimony to the very bot that journalists then found and published. This is a Futurama scene. The chatbot gets subpoenaed as a witness for Rana's side and proceeds to testify against him. The sequel writes itself. Rana sues the chatbot for harassment. The trial continues, and we're already delivering the verdict. Are you judging for yourself? Or is your chatbot already polishing its resume for a position at JPMorgan?